Welcome now to the third part of our lecture regarding the development of the knowledge society. We are now close to the end of this lecture, and I will just have a short look back and put your focus again on what I've told you in the last lecture. We have started in the year 1200 and we're now in the year 2022. And what we have seen in this development of society that we came from the agricultural society. We have been through the industrial revolution. We are now in the industrialized society, and actually we are part of what we nowadays call the information and knowledge society. What was important for me in the last lectures was that mankind tries to replace things we have, like, for example, human muscle strength, by first animals and later on by machines. And now we are in a phase where we try to replace mental work by the work of machines, for example, smartphones or the so-called artificial intelligence. What I have said in the last lecture is that we have observed this change from a culture of word, which is called a word of mouth, which is called orality, of the alphabetization phase to the writing culture, and then the internet and Web 2.0, which means the integration of everybody and the spreading of information even more. It's something we can also say from this global perspective, is that information became viral. So it starts with giving information from one person to the next, and then it goes viral over the ages, but it took hundreds and hundreds of years when you look at the time scale. However, the background of this is also based on the so-called Molinology, and the Molinology is the idea how mills have been developed. I'm really honestly speaking now about mills, even if this has nothing to do with computer science. But when you look at the development of the internet is mainly related to the development of computers, and the computer development is mainly related to the development of transportable energy sources, and the development of transportable energy sources is mainly related to what we had before. And the first steps towards let's call it globalization in the medieval world was based on mills. This is really interesting. So the first example has been water mills. We know from first constructions which we found in Pompeii, from excavations, that we had some water mills in Pompeii. And Pompeii was very important for this, as probably you know the story. There has been a volcano eruption, and everything was destroyed. Their very big ancient cities have been destroyed. And from nowadays perspective, the archaeologists are really happy to see this, as there have been like printouts, like patterns and forms of all the things which have been there, furniture, garbage, persons, whatever, buildings, and also we have those printed forms in the stone, which has been the lava from the volcano, which are the remains of the water mills. So we know that the first constructions are still available in this Pompeii time. The reason why these water mills have not survived all this time is that the water mills are constructed by wood, and when you put wood into water in most areas of the world, this wood becomes something like a rotten mud over the years. So when you make archaeological excavations, you sometimes found remains of water mills in Germany, which might have been here since 600 years before the birth of our calendar system, which is the calendar system which is in our region here in Germany, related to the birth of Jesus Christ, the year 0. However, so this is the AD on the slide, which means Anno Domini, the 600 before Jesus was born. However, these water mills, these remains of the water mills, are only small parts of wood which are found in certain places close to rivers. And what we had here is that water mills need a certain type of level of water in a river. You have to have a comparable, constant level of the river. If you take the big river in Germany, for example, the Donau River or the Rhine, those big rivers are always depending on the amount of snow in the mountains. And if it's a very snowy year, then in spring, a large amount of water, which raised the level of the river more than 2 meters over their normal level, there nobody is able to have a mill there, as the mill will be destroyed by the amount of water in spring and by the lacking of water in winter. And so you need not the main rivers, but those smaller side rivers which lead to the main rivers. And so when you look at development of cities in Germany, you find a lot of cities which are developed in those side arms of the big rivers where the level of the water remains more or less the same over the time. However, we have those water mills, and first of all, these water mills have been used for making fur out of the wheat, for example. I'm always saying corn, but I don't mean corn. Corn is the wrong word. I always mean something like wheat, for example. The problem is that the German term for corn is Mais, and the German word for wheat is Korn. So I'm constantly confusing the both. However, the cultural exchange between Occident and Orient and Islamic Spain has led to the production of paper in the year 12,000. Spain has been under an Islamic regime, and all those, well, let's say the infrastructure has been put into a very high level during this time. You still found water systems in Spain which are based on this ancient first constructs which the Islamic people brought to Spain. However, the production of paper was very advanced in this time, and what we found in this area as well in the year 12,000, we have this culture of word of mouth, this orality. And however, we had those masters and the students in Germany had to travel around the country for a while. They had to start their lectures not at the university, but also when they learn some handcrafting, and then they have to walk around in Germany or in Europe or wherever they want to go. And so some of them went also to Spain, and there they brought back information about the production of paper. And this first production of paper, the main ideas come from the Islamic world, which has been brought to Spain in that time. And so knowledge about how paper can be produced came to, for example, to the region where nowadays we found Germany. And some of the water mills have been changed to paper mills. And it took almost 100 years, but in around the year 1300, the first German paper mill is known from paperworks. What is very interesting there is that the monks and the monasteries are the only ones who have been able to write. And there has been documents where a monk has written down something describing a paper mill. So very important here is the archaeologists, which worked in this field are always language artists, let's say it that way, as they are able to read the monks' writings, which has been in Latin, a very bad Latin sometimes, a very old Latin. They have been able to translate this in our language, which we have nowadays, and they are able to interpret it as the millionaire, the one who is living and working with a mill. He's the expert of the mill. He constructs the mill and he uses this mill on an everyday basis. However, he's not the one who's writing down something, as he's not able to write. So he went to the monastery and tells the monks to write something about his mill, and the monks have no clue what a mill is and how it works. So when the milliner says, for the construction of this mill, we have used this and this wood, and we have put this together by this and this parts, the monk simply writes something he has understood. And so we have a switch of knowledge which is not precise. However, as more and more mills have been transformed to paper mills, paper is getting cheaper. And due to the fact that paper is getting cheaper, the letterpress has been invented. The reason is very simple. When you have the chance to make experiment with stuff, as stuff is simply not that expensive anymore, you are becoming inventive. You come to a situation where you can put your hand on something you call paper and you can make experiments with it. And so technological progress is invented. Going hand in hand with this paper getting cheaper is also an extension of the alphabetization. If the paper is getting cheaper, more people can write. And if more people can write, more people want to learn writing. And after this, spreading of knowledge appears, also spreading of technique knowledge. As somebody invented a paper mill in Germany, and the next one is saying, how have you been doing this? I want to have it as well. And he can say, okay, I can tell you this, but I have something to do. I have my paper mill here, but I can also let somebody write this down. And if you can read, you can use it and then shift it and switch it and put it one step ahead. Just a short side note, German millstones are very popular on an international level, as around the year 1500, in the end of this age, a vessel has sunk in the Northern Sea, and this vessel is completely full with millstones. It's still on the base of the Northern Sea, and German millstones has been an export favor of a lot of people, and it's really a funny side information. Around the year 1617, the so-called Holländer has been invented, and if you are in Rostock, you can go to Warnemünde, and in Warnemünde there is still one of those Holländers standing there, and the Holländer is not a water mill anymore, but is a windmill. What I have told you before is that for constructing a water mill, you need a river with a very constant level of water. When you don't have water, like for example, you will live close to the Warnow and there is always swamp everywhere, you're not able to construct a mill, but you want to have a mill as you want to have your fleur and you want to work with it, then you can simply construct a windmill there. You have a lot of wind in Warnemünde and in Rostock as well. And so it's very easy to construct a windmill. And because of that, after the invention of the windmill, you have had very many more mills, which leads to the fact that a lot of those water mill workers change their job. And what you can observe now is very, very interesting. The windmills and the water mills became the center of industrial development. On one hand, you have the windmill, which is not related anymore to a place where water is. But on the other hand, you have still those old water mills, and those water mills produce energy. A lot of those ancient mills changed their job to energy production. And so the job profile of the miller changes. They become energy producers. When you look at that, over the ages, the water was the central source of power and energy. And when you look at the card of Germany, then you can localize a lot of very big cities which are close to the rivers. And this is not only due to the fact that you have water here for living, this is mainly due to the fact that there are the mills, the first centers of industrial development. And later on, we now change the perspective a bit. Now, don't want to bore you with stories about mills. This is just a side information, what was very interesting for me. But when you have this water energy as a central source of energy and power, and also the wind energy, which is used in this Hollander mill type, later on, you wanted to have something like transportable energy. And the first form of transportable energy is not anymore in water, but mobile energy on the first level has been steam and the invention of trains and boats based on steam. And for this, you need something you can burn. So only in around the 20th century, you have this invention of using fossil stuff for producing steam just by burning it. You make an energy transformation there. And then this is the end point. We now try to exit from, and we have invented this nuclear energy and batteries and so forth. And now we try to exit from nuclear and fossil fuel energy. And now we want to go back again to water and to wind and to sun energy. And what's really interesting is that human beings call this a big revolution. However, when you look at this long time scale, the revolution is, after all, not that big. It's just getting back to our roots. So this is the part of the end of the third lecture, sorry. And now I have just a slightly tiny bit for you to think about what this has to do with society and knowledge. Thank you very much.